Hey kids, Mr. Jeremy here at the Strasburg-Heisler Public Library for Art Club again. I have a question for you. Do you ever feel sad? Do you ever feel afraid? You know what? Adults do too. And sometimes we need reminders that things are going to be okay, that there's something else coming along the way. In addition to being your teacher here at the library, I'm also an artist. And one of the things that I love to paint are sunflowers. Over here I have some examples of some of the sunflowers that I painted. Every day I try to sit down and paint one, and that way I can pass it on to somebody else, and it's a picture of hope. It reminds them that there are sunnier days coming. Well, today we're going to make a sunflower too, but we're going to do it a little bit different. We are going to do what's called a crayon watercolor resist picture. And to help with that, if you come by the library in the next few days, we have some great make and take bags already put together for you. But just in case you don't, let me go ahead and tell you what's in here and what you're still going to need. So, if you get one of the bags, there's going to be a piece of watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is a little thicker. It doesn't bend quite as easy. And that means that when it gets wet, it's not going to kind of warp all over the place. You're going to find a little brown circle, which is going to be the middle of our sunflower. You're going to find 3 crayons, green, orange, and yellow, and those will be the colors that you'll need to do our project. You'll also need some things that aren't in the bag. You'll need a glue stick. You'll need a black marker and some watercolor paint. Now, if you don't have watercolor paint, you can get this pretty inexpensively at your local dollar store. Now, let me show you how we're going to do this. So I'm just going to use a regular notebook here of watercolor paper. You'll have your individual sheet, but we're going to draw our sunflower on here. We're going to need some petals for our sunflower. And your petals can look different than mine, okay? Because every sunflower is a little bit different. But I'm going to make some rounded sunflower petals. Now, my sunflower looks a little sad at this point, so I'm going to add a few extra petals. Round the outside. And once you have that done, you can add some lines in your petals to show that they're kind of moving. They're searching for the sunshine. Just like that. And then we can take our crayon and we can add a little bit of shadow. Now I should tell you also, if for some reason you can't get watercolor paint and you have these 3 crayons, you can still do this project because you can just color the whole thing in. Now you can see I'm just adding some shadow on each of my petals here. And as I'm doing it, I'm asking myself the question of where is my sunshine? And for me, it's coming from over here. So I'm putting my shadow on the other side from that. Okay. Make my lines a little bit darker in my petals. Something like that. Now you also have a yellow crayon. So once you have this orange done, take that yellow crayon And you can come back in, and just like I did shadow, you can do highlight by making it a little brighter on the edges of your sunflower. And again, if you don't have the watercolor paint, you just keep on coloring. You'll fill the whole thing in. Now, why this is called a crayon watercolor resist is because watercolor paper sucks up water. It sucks up the paint when you're painting. But crayons are made out of wax, and wax doesn't allow the water to go into the spaces on the paper that it's covering. So once we do the painting, we will still see parts of our crayon. Now, maybe not with the yellow, because that's a little bit lighter, but you will still be able to see certain parts. We had one more crayon. We had a green one. Now I'm going to come down here to do this. I'm going to make a stalk for my sunflower. And I'm going to put some big old leaves on him, just like that. I'm going to put my lines in the middle again. And I'm going to do a little bit of coloring, just at the sides. Nothing too high-tech here. And then finally, we're going to give him a little bit of ground to stand on, just like that. So I'm going to do something called wet on wet. I'm going to put my paintbrush in the water, and I'm going to get the place on my petals wet before I ever use my paint. It's going to allow my paint to seep in and move around a little bit easier. And I may have to go back and get it wet again as I add some color if it starts drying out on me. But this at least gives a good base for us to work with. And I'm going to be kind of clunky here as I do this. With watercolor, you always want to use your lightest color first. So I'm going to use yellow first here, one here. And this is really, really light yellow. So you may not be able to see it a whole lot in the video. But I'm going to add that around those areas where I had the yellow colored. I'll just do a few here. So after I do that, I'm going to grab some orange. And you can tell I didn't have all the yellow out of my brush. Don't do this to your paints. You want to keep them as pure as possible, but I'm mixing right in the pan. And then as we mix them together, we get a slightly different color. Right over that crayon again. You're going to go ahead and you're going to do that for all of your petals and even in between. And you're going to give that a little bit of time to dry. You're going to also take your brush, and once it's rinsed out, you're going to grab some of that green. And we're going to paint our leaves that we had down here. Just like that. And paint your stalk and your grass that's down below. That's as far as I'm going to go on mine. But you can see that this is eventually what it's going to look like. You can see where I had that shadow. You can see where the highlight is. And how I kind of faded my colors together. You can see both yellow and orange in my paint that's there as well. Now that leaves something else for us to do. We have to do a center, okay? So let's change gears, and we're going to let our watercolor dry here a little bit. And we're going to take one of those brown circles that we had.
just so you can see, I'm going to put it on top of this white paper, like that. And you're going to take your black marker. This is really easy. When you look at mine, you may think, oh, that's a hard design. But I'm going to show you how to do this. But you can decorate the center of your sunflower any way that you want to. Now, to do what I did, what you're going to do is you're going to make some straight lines. Going to make some straight lines right across that brown center. Just like that. Then you're going to turn it, and you're going to do the same thing the other way. It's like a kind of magnified tic-tac-toe board. Just like that. Now, once we've got our grid put together, we're going to take and we're going to start every other box just putting 3 lines in it, or half lines depending how close to the edge you get. And then on the next one, you're going to stagger them. Rather than being the one that's straight over, it'll be on either side of that. Okay, now come back over here and do this side. Again, Mr. Jeremy is doing this really quick, so yours, I'm sure, will look much better than what I am doing at this moment. Okay, once you have those all done, you're going to make your lines go the other way in the remaining boxes. See, I'm fudging a little bit here as I have my boxes that are on the corners. Well, not the corners, the edges. Circles don't have corners. And there you go. See how easy that was? We just made a few simple strokes, and suddenly we've got this great design. Now, once you have this, you're going to take your glue stick, put it on the back, just like this. And remember that watercolor painting? Now, mine's not dry yet, and you're going to want to wait on yours. But this is going to go right in the center of that flower, just like that.
Thanks for being here with us today. We love making projects with you. At this point, there's a few things that we can do. You could take your sunflower and hang it up on the wall of your bedroom. Every morning when you get up, take a look at it and remember to smile. Or you could use your sunflower in much the same way that Mr. Jeremy uses his sunflowers. Send it off to somebody else, share it with somebody, and remind them that there's a reason to smile in their day. Ask Mom and Dad for an envelope, put it in, put the name on it, and send it off to Grandma and Grandpa or a friend that lives down the road, maybe somebody that you haven't seen for a while. We'd like to invite you to do one other thing also. At the bottom of the paper, if you got one of our Make and Take bags, are 2 Instagram hashtags. One belongs to the library, and one belongs to Mr. Jeremy. After you're finished, ask Mom and Dad if they have an Instagram account, if they'll take a picture of what you've created. Once they do, have them tag both the library and Mr. Jeremy. That way we can see what you've made. We want to celebrate with you your work today. Again, thanks for being here with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next month.